Man, doing good, man. Just finished watching these fights, man. It was a good fight, unexpected outcome, but doing real good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, listening to your call and sitting there watching the fights and scoring them and everything, it's like it's a great feeling, man. Meaning, even though we're all in different places, we feel really connected on fight nights. When you get to calling them and you got everybody in your live, following you right along with the action, as well as watching on their own. It's a great feeling, man. I really enjoy that. And it's great to see, the family continue to follow, from one point to another to get us through the whole process of enjoying these fight cards, man. But it was the co-main and the main event were very entertaining. And as you said, it was an unsatisfactory ending to the main event. And that's the weird thing about boxing. Sometimes we get those type of endings, and we just hope that the brother can be okay. That was ugly. I have to admit that was one of the most nasty cuts that I have ever seen to the mouth. You know, I mean, I've seen it split from the side pretty bad, but that was it, closer toward the middle, and man, that was rough to look at. So, what are your thoughts on this evening's fights?
Yeah, with the Ellis and the Munguia, the Ellis fight, and what is he fighting at welterweight? Is that correct? Yeah, at welterweight.
Yeah, oh my God. Yeah, it's supposed to be welterweight for him.
Man, he made, like someone had wrote that 140 may be the spot he needs to go down to. 147, he'll be knocked off the block very, very quick because he got gifted in this fight, in my opinion. Spent way too much time cruising along those ropes, looking to just land counter punches, which I guess it looked good to the judges, being they gave him the unanimous decision. But that's all that I've really seen Ellis doing in this fight, and he didn't look too comfortable in this fight. Seen him holding quite a bit, seen him dropping at moments in the fight. Didn't really see any real use of the jab. I think he's going to have to really develop that at this division. It's just not being in here trying to be flashy. He may need to break away from thinking everything is about being a little bit of flair and all this other stuff that he seems to be entertained with. He seems more like the flashy gym house fighter, and fighting like that, it ain't gonna get him very far as reaching the top. And it may be possible, being him a Golden Boy fighter, that they're gonna allow him to feel himself and believing into his own hype, and they're just gonna feed him over to Virgil Ortiz. And I think that may be the setup, is Virgil Ortiz looks to gear himself up for about maybe one or two fights before he moves into contention for something. They're gonna feed him Rashidi Ellis, and I don't think he's going to be able to. I don't think it's going to be nothing he can do in that ring against a Virgil Ortiz, being that there's too many deficiencies I've seen in this fight against this guy he fought, and that's the lack of a jab. Like you say, he was throwing a bunch of pity pat jabs. Then the jab would go away. He fights in spots too much, and he's just looking to out counter a fighter. And how many times you going to try to out counter somebody? But as he moves up, these other welterweights become way, way, way more dangerous. But he may consider going down to that 140 spot.
Yeah, to me, Reggie, I was absolutely, positively, 1,000% not impressed with Rashidi Ellis. I've heard a lot of people talk about him, and this was actually the first full fight of his, that I've caught. I've caught fights at the end or caught a couple of highlight reels or whatever, and I have to say I was not impressed, because he came out and from the opening bell, he retreated back to the corners and to the ropes unnecessarily. He gave the opponent all of the momentum coming forward, and he was not landing shots himself. When he was throwing, it's like, you ever seen, like, if you've played with a cat with a string or a ball of yarn or something, and when you shake it at them, how they like swipe their paw at it. His punches, he was throwing these pity-pat pawing punches that weren't even landing. They weren't landing on anything. They weren't landing on Rocha's gloves, arms, face, jaw, anything. And the entire first half of the fight went like that. Now, he did score some shots where he was able to win some rounds. And as I have my scorecard here, wow, I gave him rounds 3 and 4 early on, and then I didn't give him another round until the 9th. And the funny thing about it was, the old boxing rules of scoring, the 10-point must system and effective aggressiveness and everything, definitely came into play here for me as I, scored the fight, which is why I hadn't given him very much. He was not doing enough to stay even with Rocha. He was he was present, but he didn't make his presence felt. He didn't impose himself. And because he was retreating, it wasn't even effective fighting off the back foot, as we talk about, right? He was moving away as if to stay away from the guy. But even his corner was encouraging him to go forward sometimes, get on the front foot, and he wouldn't do it. So if your corner is admonishing you for this and you're not listening to them, why do the announcers just take up the adage of giving him what he didn't earn? They were talking about him as if he was out front the entire time. And I'm like, dude, this guy, and we're not even talking about getting to the final scorecards, but like when they did get to rounds like 9 and 10, they were saying comments like, yeah, he had landed the more effective power punches and stuff. I was like, where did you see him land power punches, Reggie? Every once in a while, he got a good uppercut in on Rocha for Rocha being in too close and not doing something. You know, he'd fall in and not do anything and get caught with that shot. But he was never wobbled. He was never staggered. He was never driven back from anything that Rocha did. That Ellis did, and Ellis could not take the aggressive play away from him. All he had to do was circle around and spin into the center of the ring and box from that position. But no, he gave ground, he gave ground, he gave ground. And for those who didn't see the action themselves, he didn't lay against the ropes. He moved along the sides of the ropes, like when a mouse is near a wall and they go around the wall, they don't want to come to the center. That's how he fought. And Rocha was right in front of him the entire time. And Lexi was like punching aggressively. He was open. He could have punched a little bit more for my liking, but my final scorecard, I had it 115-113 for Lexi Rocha. He just was that much more effective to me. So I don't know what the devil these announcers were looking at, but they were just traditionally being company men speaking in favor of the guy, where I didn't see him winning that fight at all. In fact, I would have been more happy had they just scored it a draw. You know, for those who didn't want to give Rocha the victory. But I say this time and time again. When men perform up to the level that they should get the victories that they worked for. This man was in the gym. He trained. He got prepared. He came out there and he put on a show. Rashidi Ellis, he stunk up the joint. He really did. And as you said, he's thinking about campaigning at 147. He better have a whole new game plan now, because that ain't going to work out for him. It ain't going to work out at all. And he could go down to 140. But the thing about it there, it ain't too many guys he going to be able to beat there either, because there's some aggressive guys there. There's some punchers there, and there's some guys who can box there. And he didn't box very well at all. It seemed like you said during your calling of it, he fought like a guy who is the man in a gym. You know, a guy who just, gets his shots off, looking pretty and sweet, don't want to get touched, but just trying to look classy or whatever. This was a professional boxing match here. Had that kid just been spurned on a little bit more to be a little bit more aggressive and open up with some combinations. Don't let it be less than 5 or 6 punches that you throw at a time, because he was looking to counter with a quick shot, but he was never really looking to engage, and he was never really looking to land power shots, which is why they could have encouraged Alexis to go out there and do those things. Because had he done that, he would have secured those later rounds and put them in the bank. And you saw that he was affected from those body shots because he found himself on the canvas several times. It was either 2 to 3 times. I think I count 3 if you count the low blow that he went and kind of kneeled down off of that as well. So his legs was weak. In the boxing ring, you're taught you don't want to go to the canvas unnecessarily for no reason whatsoever. Let somebody knock you off your feet, but you don't take a knee. You don't go down from trying to hold a guy and slip to your knees and stuff like that. You don't do that. And he did that a couple times tonight, and it showed me something. And I think there are some fighters out there that are chomping at the bit that be like, yeah, bring me that guy. You know what I'm saying? So that's what those are my thoughts on it. You got anything else on that or anything about what I had to say?
No, you're absolutely right on that one, man. You're absolutely right. And he needs some other work, man. I don't know what Rashidi thinks he's doing. He's going to have to look at this fight and really be honest with himself. Either stay at this division or take what he needs to work on serious. All the flash and the flaring stuff, it can be misleading. And I think even in this fight, it was misleading, like doing the showboating, like the guy can't see him, that type of stuff. The guy walked towards you the whole damn fight. Walked towards you, didn't respect your power. You was hitting him with very, very clean shots. That dude acted as if you never threw the damn punch. And if this guy's taking that punch, these other upper echelon dudes are definitely walking through those punches. And if he's a campaign and looking for success, he's going to have to really start working on things, putting his offense better together a little bit better, not just looking to throw the quick combinations, which have nothing up on them. I mean, them dudes, a top tier or even a rising prospect like Virgil Ortiz, the dude who was going to decapitate this dude. He steps in the ring with him because he plays around in that ring way too much rather than trying to get his fights off and run around to lay on the ropes and cruise around the ropes. Any other fighter traps you like that, it's going to be devastating. But that's all I got on that one. I didn't like the performance at all.
Yeah. He needs to go back to the drawing board and quickly, in other words, go back to school. But let's go to the chat for a little bit. We got some people out there that have jumped in from the start of the show. We got LeVar Cooper out there. He's saying, Stormybman, salute, and salute to everyone in the chat. Big homie Coop is out there, says salute 3 times OG, Stormybman. And he's saying back smack the like button. Everybody is saying smack the like button. Chef Boy ID is out there, says salute. G5 Gabe is out there, says salute Stormybman and Reggie Owens and the chat family. Jupiter B has joined us. The Odd Fella says, greetings from the north side. What's going on with you, Odd Fella? He says, big up OG Stormy B, man. Mark Nash, a new subscriber, has said his shots were kind of eye-catching. Okay. Jeff, the producer, is saying Stormy and Reg salute. And Mark Nash also says he threw more and landed more according to punch stats. Yeah, but they weren't counting the punches that the other man was throwing. And that's where you got to have a problem. How do they give these inflated punch stats, Reggie? I don't know, man. But do you remember in one of those rounds, they were saying that they had only credited Rocha with throwing like 3 power punches or something? And then they had...
It was like 10 landed or something. Yeah.
Huh?
I think it was a moment they said he landed like 10 punches. I was like, no.
It was like, no, he was the one that landed the most of the punches in the round. It was like they weren't even counting him. It was like they were sitting there waiting for Ellis to throw something and then double mark how many he threw. If he threw 1, they mark 2. If he threw 2, they mark 4. Because it's like it was so much imbalance there. It was freaking ridiculous. You watching the fight and they telling you something that your eyes did not see. Man, they got to get this stuff together, man. Really. Big time. Watcher is out there. He says, salute everyone. Salute to you, Watcher. And See Perception Music says, Rashidi got lucky for sure, but he did turn it on too late. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to give the analogy of the Lomachenko-Lopez fight, You could say it like that because he tried to pick it up a little bit in the last 2 rounds. And I gave him rounds, let's see, what did I give him? I gave him rounds 11 and 12, but I didn't give him the 10th round. So it's not like he had a sweep of rounds toward the end. He did not. Those rounds were very close, and some of those rounds, like when Reggie was calling, he's like, that's a close round. You could kind of give it to one guy, but I'm going to give it to this guy. Reggie was decisive in who he was giving his rounds to, as was I, which is why I had Alexi winning 7-5, because he was in the position to take rounds where the other guy was reacting to what was happening in the rounds. And even his corner men were telling him, you got to get on the front foot and be aggressive. So if your corner man is telling you that, they feel that the fight is either too close or you behind and you need to catch up. They're not telling you that if you out front. Right? Right, Reggie?
That's absolutely right.
They're not, riding you. They're not trying to hype you up and pump you up if you out front already. So there you go. You got the answer right there. Go back to the chat real quick. Harry E says, salute Stormy, B-Man, and Reggie in the chat. Salute to you. Andrew Charles has joined and says, salute Stormy, B-Man, and Reggie. Pound for Pound Boxing Channel says, salute. John Lejeune, ain't seen you in a minute, says, what up, everybody? He says, that wasn't a very exciting card. It has some action on there, though. It did. I'm not going to complain because we've been seeing such good fights lately, man. It's hard to keep hitting those home runs every single card. Drew Titan is out there. He says, those punch stats are like electoral vote. Absolutely. Salute to you, Drew Titan, man. Good to see you. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. They're like the electoral vote, Crazy, man. And C Perception Music says, that's a good point. Rashidi wasn't reacting to what Rocha was doing. He didn't initiate the action enough. Absolutely. And that's what we're trying to say here. If you are taking play, I have to give you credit for what you're doing. He never did that in the entire fight, except for the last 2 rounds. And in those last 2 rounds, there were too many of those middle rounds that went by that he wasn't assertive enough, which is why his cornerman was trying to edge him on. There you have it right there in a nutshell, bro. Eric R. is out there. He says, what's up, Stormy B-Man and Reggie Owens? And he's asking, did Ellis lose? No, Ellis was given the decision, and it was definitely a gift. Reggie and I felt like he lost that fight. But it was a close fight. One of the judges in there had it like I did, 115 to 113, but they had it for Ellis, whereas I had it for Rocha. So I could see that happening. Let's move on to that main event, Reggie, for Munguia versus Johnson, man. Now, this fight right here, everybody that I had talked with about this fight thought that this could be a tougher fight for Munguia because of Johnson's experience in there, having lost to guys like Curtis Stevens and Sergey Derenchenko. So those were the 2 losses on his record. But I didn't know, because I didn't check up on the box rec or anything, when his last fight was. And it was well over a year since he had fought. And that plays in heavily, especially when you're talking about an older guy. And he's 36 years old. Munguia is 24, still fresh as a baby in the sport of boxing, and he's been very carefully managed, to say the least. But in this fight, Turiano brought some experience, and from the opening bell, he jumped right on Jaime Munguia and had Munguia looking over to the corner like, hey, what should I do? Or why'd y'all put me in there with this guy or whatever? But there were some setbacks early on for Johnson, because even as they were walking to the ring, Reggie remarked that the guy looked like he had a bad leg. And I was thinking, when Reggie said that, I'm looking at him walking to the ring myself. I was like, he walked like a guy that got bad feet or something, you know. So something was wrong with his wheels, whether it was a bad gimpy knee or his foot or something. But from the opening bell, he jumped right on Jaime Munguia, took the play away from him immediately, and turned it into a phone booth type fight. So, Reggie, with your call being fresh, what are your thoughts of this fight, how Johnson came in, and how he started the fight?
Man, he surprised the hell out of me. Like, looking at everything going into the fight, how long he been out, the age, seeing how he's walking. I'm like, man, it's another Oscar production, trying to build something up by bringing in an unprepared opponent. And it was such a shocking performance that even Munguia, through several rounds, couldn't stop looking over at his corner, like looking for a lifeline. Like, yell something, coach. There's no one in here. I can hear you. Help me, please. It was like, I'm like, what the hell is Munguia doing? So it shows that Munguia has some level of uncomfort. He's not comfortable being pressured like that. So this is a sign for other fighters that he revealed in this fight as well. So other fighters having more youth behind them. Munguia looked a little bit weathered going into this fight. He does not like this. He likes for fighters to sit there in front of him. And he's easy to hit. This dude, with the style that he fought with, was hitting Munguia with a lot of clean punches, but didn't have the leverage behind it because I think something was wrong with that leg. But he was hitting Munguia with some solid shots. Munguia seems to be a little soft towards the body. He didn't like some of the body shots. So he's kind of a work in progress for somebody to knock off. And even after this fight, based on what Munguia experienced, Munguia's slowing his track down. It's funny, every time Munguia experienced a little bit of difficulty, he kind of tracks back, because early on he was the guy talking the most noise within the division, calling out everyone. Then that slowly started to track after he had one or two tough fights. Then they were talking this Canelo stuff as this fight was building up. Now hear him in a press conference, he talking about he may need another fight or two. So it just shows what this guy put on. This dude hit Munguia with some solid shots, but the thing that this guy left himself open to was those uppercuts. Munguia was hitting with some massive uppercuts, and I noticed that every time Munguia hit him with it, it snapped that neck up. That neck went up with the force of them punches and stuff, and it was unfortunate that one of them uppercuts created that big old cut on the lip, man. Nasty cut. But the other thing is the heart of Johnson. Johnson didn't give two damns about that cut. He went right in there to fight it on. He didn't want the doctor to stop it. He had a cut on the eye, and he's just looking in there to go about doing it, because he's seen that he had something going for himself, and he really had something going that I was interested in see how does this play out for a full 12-round fight. And I'm no Munguia is so happy that this fight was called. It was a very, very tight fight, and it ultimately, man, it was an exciting fight. I was excited about that because I was not expecting this to come from Johnson, and Johnson didn't come in here to play around. He really came in here to try to knock Munguia up off his square, knock the momentum that Munguia has had behind him. And I want to see where Munguia is going to go, but Munguia has a lot to work on. I know they're trying to build up all this and that he has Morales behind him. But that doesn't seem to change too much about him. Munguia is who he is. Munguia's ability. The other thing is how slow the adjustments of Munguia was. He was very slow on his ability to adjust in this fight. This dude was able, and then also the footwork is bad. Being that this guy, how flat-footed this guy was, seeing how bad the legs was, Munguia couldn't dance around on him. Munguia only moves in one way. It's predictable for a more versatile type fighter that can put that kind of pressure on Munguia and is just as strong. They're gonna tear Munguia up, and I want to see what happens in this next fight. But Oscar and them cannot keep adding fights for this guy, and I hope other fighters start calling Munguia out. Those who are still in contention looking for title shots, it's their time to start vocalizing and getting on Munguia's ass, getting up on Munguia, make these fights make these things tough for him, especially these younger fighters who are looking to climb up. But that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I felt like Munguia was in a fight that he was gonna have to win the battle of attrition, and he was in there with the guy who had a lot going against him, meaning like talking about for Johnson, his age, his layoff, his injury, whatever it was to his lower body. But he still fought with the type of spirit that you need to see a young fighter have to face, because Munguia wasn't going to get out of there scot-free. He wasn't. And it's unfortunate that the cut happened on Toriano's lip like it did, because that was what ended the fight. It wasn't anything Munguia was doing to him as boxing-wise, but he did catch that. I don't know, maybe he didn't have his mouthpiece all the way in his mouth or something, but that was a real odd situation that his lip got split like that. And like I said, that was the nastiest split lip I've ever seen in my years of watching boxing. I don't wish that on anyone. But there's a comment in the chat there that somebody was saying that, who was that? Let me go back. Somebody was making a suggestion of maybe possibly Andrade or Triple G for Munguia next. Triple G would be a good bet to catapult him, because Triple G is shot, man. He's done. And someone like Munguia could beat him up. And I hope they make that type of fight, because I want to see Triple G beaten up. It's something about me, the sadist in me, that wants to see Triple G beaten to a pulp by somebody who's capable of doing it. And I do believe that Munguia could do that to him, as far as how much he's slipped, because we know he's not going to give a chance to one of the other refined boxers like Andrade or even Charlo. We know that's not going to happen. So maybe, just maybe, he could be coerced into giving Jaime Munguia a shot, and we could see something like that, because I would take Munguia by middle round stoppage on that for Triple G fighting him. What are your thoughts on the possibility of Munguia fighting someone like Triple G, Reggie?
Man, I think Triple G is shot as well. And I think Munguia having successes in that fight, but I think ultimately the power of Triple G will get him up out of there, because Triple G power will register on this guy, because he's easy to hit. And especially the way that he likes to lean forward, like with what Johnson was able to hit him with. And I see Munguia does it a lot, because he likes to lean over to the side, over the front of that lead leg, and he dips his head down, leaving himself open to be hit with, downward type hooks. And Triple G has a perfect downward type hook. And if he hits Munguia in them spots, Munguia is going to sleep. I think Munguia have success in that fight. Even with Triple G slowing down, I think Triple G will ultimately get Munguia up out of there.
Yeah, my thoughts are this. Being shot as I feel he is, I think that Triple G is a puncher, but I don't think Triple G can fight, which is two different things. Remember, a fighter means, you sit down and you go for it. Munguia is a young, fresh kid. He can do that. That old guy, he can't do that. Remember, when he fought Canelo, the first time, Canelo beat him with movement and countering and stuff like that or whatever, and they called it, a draw or something like that. It should have been a decision for Canelo. And in the second fight, because he had talked crap between the matches, Canelo came out and took the fight to him, and he couldn't deal with that. So what would a younger, fresher, stronger kid do? Beat him up, which is what I would really like to see, and I think everybody else would like to see it too. It's time for Triple G to get grilled, huh? Let's see some of that. What do they call it? Where is he from? Kazakhstan. Let's see some of that Kazakhstan hide on the grill. Huh? I wonder what that meat tastes like. Huh? Get him out of here. So, but yeah, man. As we move forward and talk about, the week's worth of events and stuff, I want to take a little moment, Reggie, to talk about something that was announced earlier in the week. We don't have to focus on the guys, but with recently the conversation that took place where Floyd Mayweather, talking about these sanctioning bodies, man. He made a very revealing remark talking about these sanctioning bodies and all of these belts, that they're making up. To see that and to want to see something done about it, I just want to talk about that for a moment. And with this Tyson versus Roy Jones fight that's coming up, not so much about the fight, but it was revealed earlier this week, Reggie, that they have decided, the WBC in their infinite corruption, have decided to create a belt for this fight, and they're calling it the Black Lives Matter belt. I'm putting a picture of it up here on the screen, too, for anybody that want to see it, what it looks like. It's got Jones's name and Tyson's name engraved under the WBC logo. It's got their names on the picture buttons. It's got a Black Lives Matter emblem on the buttons. It's got the Tyson versus Jones emblem. It's got the WBC emblems on there. And around the crest of the centerpiece under the national flags, it's got Black Lives Matter over the WBC logo. Man, what the hell, Reggie? What are your thoughts about this and when you heard about them doing this?
I think it's just a joke and a play on the race of people that they disrespect on a constant. I mean, anytime we look up, there's always an issue in the way in which black fighters are treated and every hoop that they have to jump through to get a belt. Anytime they become, and this is how me building up into what I think about this belt. And it's just that anytime a black fighter is geared into position, certain fighters are allowed to go about requests for titles that make them untouchable, to where mandatories that are no longer able to challenge them. Then you can deal with favorable fighters who can test hot on certain drugs, can be suspended, but still remain as champion. What else is the situation? A woman can go into a fight under the WBC, lose her title to one of the worst drug cheats in the history of boxing, and have to fight her way through to getting her title back. And the odd coincidence is that she doesn't get her belt back until the situation comes up out of the George Floyd situation. And when things got real hot and heated over this kind of racial things, the minute that she gets her belt back after, a 4-month challenge for it, after it was revealed this other woman from his country failed in this test. So this is kind of the way in which things go when it comes to black fighters trying to become champions. Now almost creating a situation of a black murderer's row type situation, being that black fighters are being isolated from challenging any other race of fighter who is out there with a title. So this is the thing. So he has zero respect for black fighters. And there's also a thing where I heard him disrespect Muhammad Ali with one of the most disrespectful jokes put out there while speaking on the life and legacy of Muhammad Ali. So it just shows what he views of black fighters, period. So coming into this thing, you put a Black Lives Matter title on the line for two half-a-century-old fighters, two fighters that are beyond the years of 50. going back into a ring, haven't been in the ring for a long time. One of these fighters getting into the ring has been constantly knocked out time and time again. Don't even know how he's able to pass any kind of boxing physical to even get back in the ring. And something's going on because they didn't switch this venue up again. So this is kind of the danger, along with what boxing is. Boxing is a sport in which these fighters put their lives on the line. So now you let a fighter way past the century, physically everything that changed within these people. All the engineering of what they used to be is gone. They have now shifted their way towards the elder ages of life, and now you got them going there being punched on. One of the dudes going in there, Mike Tyson juiced up. I ain't even about to joke around with it. He's juiced back up. At that age, tremendous power, tremendous speed, and he's going in here against an elder man with a glass chin. This is real life risking type fight, and for a situation like that, which the threat to life is really, really high in this fight, and you put such a damn belt on a line like that, it's just a joke and it's a slap in the face. Because not to say that one of these fighters can lose their lives, that's the possibility, but Roy Jones can definitely lose his life in this fight. And it's just a slap in the face. And I think it's a joke. Why is a belt even put on a line for something like that is almost reminiscent of some exhibition type crap? Like, this fool was a joke, a scumbag, man. But that's the way I feel about this belt, man. It's trash.
Now, I'll tell you something. Everything you said, I really agree with you. And I have no counterpoint. You spoke very well of the situation and circumstances and how disrespectful, as it said in the chat, that this is toward the black fighter as well as fighters in general. Like you mentioned, Fayshawn Cruz, you know, what happened with her situation. This organization is scum. It's at the bottom, you know. We could see things differently if they decided to have an annual Hall of Fame, you know, like around Hall of Fame themed situation where you could put on an exhibition between classic, recently retired fighters. And when I say recently retired, you know, Roy Jones last fought, what was it, 2 years ago, 2018, 2017, something like that. You know, you take a guy like him and, you know, another guy like a James Toney or somebody who fought recent like that as well, and have like a historical Hall of Fame themed thing like that, and an exhibition for like 3, 4, 5 rounds, something like that. And you have a belt for the winner, you know, of that. The Hall of Fame, you know, you could put a name on it, whatever you would want to name it, and that do it in a respectful manner. But to put a belt out there, calling it the Black Lives Matter belt and stuff like that, you know, I know, Reggie, you can get more into the political themes and things like that. You know, I opt not to do that, but I'll just say I'm not happy. Not in the least bit. And I think it's so disrespectful. And I think somebody need to come for that dude's head, really. Because this is the kind of thing that should really set people's ass aflame. Okay? It's unacceptable. But as I may have suggested a moment ago about a Hall of Fame themed exhibition between recently retired fighters who may be going into the Hall of Fame or something like that, to put on a little exhibition to give people an idea of what it might have been like to see these guys or whatever, that's totally different. And it be based on them not trying to hurt each other, an actual exhibition with headgear and everything. People would be more inclined to tune into something like that because it's respectful, and respectfully they would allow themselves to go there with something like that because it's tributing to the the whole essence of the sport itself. Remember, it's not an individually themed thing. It's for the sport of boxing. And it could promote the sport of boxing, and proceeds from something like that could go toward the pensions of the fighters or the caring of fighters who are past it and have fallen on hard times and things like that. What are your thoughts about what I suggest, Reggie?
Yeah, and that pension thing came to my mind as well, and I think that's with the money that's collected, because even when people describe what the sanctioning body, like what they use with the fees, is what the fighters can do on their own, buying hotel rooms, flights, and going out to dine. Like, that's all that they do for fighters, that to collect and all that. There's no money allotted to the side, and I think that's really what's needed. And also with the pension thing, had these fighters been receiving a pension, even if they, screwed off the money that they made during their active years, the pension is something that should be able to carry them afloat. Had the financial cares been put in place, if people really cared for these fighters, but ultimately they don't, man. And Mike Tyson and them should not even sign on to that. They should kick this belt thing to the side. Like Mike Tyson said before, these belts don't mean anything to him. He said in the interview, and this Black Lives Matter belt shouldn't mean crap to him. And it should be kicked to the side by both of these fighters. And I think it's disrespect, man. And the fight, when the fight came up, I didn't want to see that. I'm like, these dudes way too old, but the fighters won it, man. And this is the other problem when you have people who don't know anything else, how to do anything else in life, man. Sometimes, man, they will do this all the way until they die. And I think some of these folks wouldn't mind fading away inside that ring. They know nothing else. There's no other skills. They've been doing this since childhood. I don't know what goes on with them psychologically when they no longer have this type of thing. And that's kind of common with people, period. When they've done something for so long, it's hard for them to just go away and not have this anymore. And like I say, I hope it don't turn out that way, but this can be really bad for Roy Jones, and the fact they won't be wearing headgear, like, it's bad. But that's my thoughts on it. But hopefully these fighters can start doing something, even with Floyd speaking about there being too many belts. Maybe he can start becoming the voice of the sport, a voice for the longevity of fighters down the line in retirement when the sport is no longer there. They're no longer able to compete. And not everybody who can't compete is not just because they're old. There's very young fighters recently who've come up to where they go to an exam and they find out there's some heart condition. Now they've taken away from the sport, have nothing else left on the line, get hit in the eye is damaged. They're done with the sport in their prime years. Things like this happen. And what does the sport do? What does the promoters do? Walk away, wash their hands of these dudes and find the next guy up. But there needs to be a better balance in the sport, and that's to protecting these guys financially. And pensions are something that should be put in place, and a percentage of a fighter's paycheck should be placed into these kind of funds. And that's just my thought. That's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's just something to think about, man. I don't like what they're doing there. I don't like the fact that Roy Jones allowed himself to get drawn in on this. I don't like whatever Tyson's angle is on this, because you have to understand that Tyson, ever since he gave up his career as a fighter with biting Evander Holyfield, he's been on the outskirts of boxing and has been some kind of a minstrel show. And I take stabs at him sometimes, but this right here, this whole thing, listen, the man didn't want to fight when he had his last professional fight. Now, all of a sudden, it's 10 years later, and he really want to get back in there again and try to fight. Get out of here. This is a young man's sport. It's a new day and a new era. There are other faces out there to be seen and talked about. So go sit your butt down somewhere and smoke your weed and leave us the hell alone. because people who like train wrecks, they could tune into that little podcast show he got and watch him sit there and go through his multiple personalities and everything. I don't need to see him in my beloved sport, where there are other people very much worthwhile watching, and not him, not named him. So that's what I have to say about that. But we did call this show Where Are the Heavyweights? And we got a heavyweight bout up on the horizon this weekend, Reggie. And that's going to be where we see Alexander Usyk taking on Derek Chisora, man. And this is one of those fights where people want to see Usyk and how he fares against another heavyweight that is much more along the track of competition than Mr. Chaz Witherspoon was. Personally, I do think that this could be another one of those situations where a guy is being brought in just to be cannon fodder, but there's a little bit of resolute of hope that Mr. Chisora wants to come in here and make a name for himself and keep his name active in the heavyweight division. That's what I'm hoping for. But man, I've been wrong before and I could be wrong again. What are your thoughts on this, Reggie, as we approach it coming up tomorrow night, Halloween night?
I'm looking for Chisora to go in here and crush this dude. I just don't like what you know, we talk about the overhyping of folks, and Usyk is one of these guys. He's another Lomachenko-connected guy. It was the buildup of these two going into the sport and what they have accomplished, especially Lomachenko out of the amateurs and Usyk out of the Usyk was pretty good out of the amateur program as well, but also what he's done at the cruiserweight division. And now trying to make the comparison of him and Holyfield is to trying to write him as being the heir apparent to Holyfield, and possibly that whole talk will be he'll be greater than Holyfield if he is to pull off this victory. But to me, it's not to even just throw hate at him, because I am kind of hating on Usyk, but he has to prove himself as a heavyweight. I can't crown him. I'm not going to crown him because of, and this is the bad thing with media with this white hyping, is that they turn you against fighters who you know, they really deserve the respect. And I, on one end, I do respect Usyk, but I think things are going a little bit too far and overblown with the way the media wants to push and portray him. But he has some work to do. He has a lot of work to do coming into this division. And being in here with Chisora, we're going to really get to see it. And this is a faded Chisora who's been through the gauntlet, been through the battles. And I still think he may end up being a little bit too much for Usyk. I want to see how well Usyk handles the punches up here and see how well Chisora fight. I don't want Chisora to go in here and take no type of dives. Give it all he got. If he wins, if he loses, or if it's a draw. Test this dude. Don't leave Usyk in here being unproven by not giving him a little bit of work. And Usyk's been, everyone else Usyk has fought as a heavyweight, he has brought the pain to these cats. He's put on some very memorable type fights going into these things. And I expect nothing less going in here against Usyk. Usyk, to me, ain't known for his power. He's known to just outlast fighters. His work rate is pretty high. But now he's up here where folks can bang, and I think he's going to end up being smashed. I think going in this one, he's 217. Chisora weighed in at 255 will probably pick on a little bit more pounds from that, as well as Usyk, but he's still smaller as far as weight, not so much in stature. He has the height and all that, but his frame looks little, man, and Chisora can just time something, crack him in that small head, and get him up out of there. That's the way I view that one. I got Chisora knocking him out, hopefully.
Well, I put it like this, and this will make it more painful for you, where we can empathize with one another. Listen, they're trying to put this guy up there with my favorite fighter, Evander Holyfield. Now, you know that don't sit well with me. It don't sit well with me at all, because the real deal was exactly that. Okay, this guy's question marks and eraser marks all over his ledger. I don't think of this guy with any high aspirations other than the loftiness that they've put him up there because of his complexion. But think about it like this, Reggie. What if they were to tell you that Tyson Fury is better than Lennox Lewis? Huh? How would you take that information? And they'd be like, it's even more disrespectful that they've gone back and used Ali's name, which is like that's the highest that they could reach. Okay? But it would make more sense for them to say Marciano, right? Because of who Marciano was and what he was. But that's not what they do. They go for our legends, okay? And then want to tear down that legacy by displacing it as if it was like minimal. But just think about that for a moment. What if they were trying to tout him as better than Lennox? How would you feel about that, Reggie?
Oh, I feel the same way I feel about all of them. Like, hell nah, F that. He got to prove something. Me, I'm super anti whitewashing. And I think even white athletes need to be anti that.
Now, I will say this though. And it's not a slap at Lennox because Lennox Lewis enjoys something that almost no fighter can say. And do you know what that is? You should know what it is because he's your favorite fighter. But I want to see if you can tell our listeners what it is about Lennox that he enjoys that no other fighter can say.
Oh, he's defeated every person he stepped in the ring with.
Absolutely.
Even in loss, he avenges.
Exactly. And you know what that says? That's a damn champion right there. Meaning that even when he had his setbacks, he was able to come back and right the wrongs, and that's heavy respect right there. Heavy respect. Because a fighter like that, you could get him, man, yeah, because people are human, right? But when you could come back and avenge, and usually the fighters he had to avenge against, he put the divide of separation so great between he and that person that it's almost like he didn't lose to him, even though he did. You know what I mean? When Hasim Rahman knocked him out in South Africa, it was a devastating knockout. But he immediately in the ring, in the post-fight interview, said, I know what I did wrong, and hey, I'm going to correct this. I'm coming back. I'm going to get my belts back. But when he came back in that rematch against Rahman, and he knocked Hasim Rahman out, that was one of the most devastating knockouts I had ever seen in the heavyweight division. And I could still hear that two-punch combination resonating off of Rahman's head. I never heard a punch so loud. It was like somebody fired a cherry bomb or something. And Hasim Rahman looked like the one who got hit with the cherry bomb because he couldn't even rise to his feet after that. That was something. And if you're trying to tell me that these weaklings out here are like that, or who that man was, the last true, real, undisputed heavyweight champion, we got a lot of work to do and a lot of ground to make up, because these guys are far separate from what he was as a champion. You know what I mean? So that's what I had to say about that, Reggie, and much respect to your boy Lennox Lewis, because he did it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, since we're on the heavyweights, next month, well, yeah, in the month of November, on Saturday the 21st, we're going to see a rematch between Alexander Povetkin and Dillian Whyte, which is a quick turnaround, seeing that it was just a couple of months back that Dillian suffered at the hands of Alexander Povetkin, got knocked out. But it's a great thing to see rematches taking place, because, you know, you and I, we've had shows where we talked about rematches being essential in the sport, because just because somebody got the best of a guy one time doesn't mean that that may necessarily be the case, you know, when they go out again and again and again, you know, facing each other in round robins. So it's like, it's good to see that these guys are going to face off again. But my thoughts are, I want to see the fight, and I'm hoping that it becomes a situation where, you know, it's a competitive fight, but I would like to see the same results at the end of the day. I think I would like to see, you know, Mr. Povetkin do what he did to Dillian Whyte so eloquently the first time around. I don't think that this was a mistake that he could just clean up. I think that anytime Povetkin puts it on his chin, that's the type of result he could get. He put Povetkin down twice with knockdowns, right? But Povetkin was just stunned and went down to his knee on one occasion, and he went down and got right back up and continued to fight. But he was not seriously hurt and in danger. So when he hit Whyte solidly, Whyte went night-night, you know, and that's the difference. Now, if Whyte wants to try to stick and move and stay away and build up points and everything, that's okay. But always remember this. All Povetkin has to do is just come in very, very good shape, because Whyte gets tired in the middle rounds. Because he don't have the best of conditioning. And once he gets tired, them hands going to come down again. And guess who could still hit him and knock him out? So, but that's next month on the 21st. I mean, it's a fast turnaround. Usually guys get knocked out like that, they want to go, you know, sit on the beach and think about life, contemplate things before they come back. But this guy wants to go right back into the thick of things. What are your thoughts on this?
Man, I'm surprised they're allowing him to get back in the ring so soon after a knockout. The rules and standards are different, but I think going in this one, I think Povetkin can catch him with the same shot. I mean, he's going to catch him with the same shot. And I'm sure when Dillian feels some shots winging across him, psychologically, how does Dillian Whyte respond to it? Is he afraid? He ain't never been knocked out like this. He's been buzzed and hurt, but now you're going in here with a guy who knows he can knock you out. You done dropped him. He kept getting back up. But this guy has one-punch finishing power on you in the best camp you done came in, best shape you probably been in a long time. And I think it's going to end. I think it's going to end in the same result for Povetkin on Dillian Whyte. I just see it that way. I'm surprised he's getting back in there.
Yeah. But, you know, I see a couple of comments in the chat there, like Drew Titan says, man, he says that video on loop is everything, just showing Whyte getting knocked out. I like to do it, man. I'll find a reason to drop that in every show if you let me. I just like to see the guy get his, man. We waited so long. We just have to, you know, enjoy it. And as I told everybody on the Friday night chop session in the past, whenever I can, I will make sure I treat you guys to something special with watching this guy get his head handed to him. That's classic stuff right there, though. But hey, man, we got another card coming up tomorrow, Reggie, after the the UK card. I'm calling it the UK card with the heavyweights. But we got Monster Inoue. He's coming back to take on what's his name, Jason Maloney. What do you think about this fight here? Because Maloney has been a guy out there. They both have fought a common opponent in that World Super Series, that Emmanuel Rodriguez guy. Did you follow the World Super Series?
Yeah, I did, but not so much in Inoue's division. Not so much in his division. I think I've seen his quick knockout of one fighter, and I watched the Donaire one. But not too much on Maloney. I don't know too much on Maloney.
Yeah, well, Maloney, he suffered a loss to Rodriguez by a split decision. And in that fight, what I noticed about him, a lot of his fights before the series, right, were fights that were showcase fights for him. Guys that really didn't belong in the ring with him. He beat them up. He knocked them out. Because his knockout record is kind of padded. But when he stepped up in the opposition in the Super Series, he wasn't knocking those guys out. Now, that close decision with Rodriguez was something because Rodriguez looked better as he went on in the series, and Donaire fared better as well. But as soon as Rodriguez, and it was, I hadn't seen him before the Super Series. As soon as he went in there with Inoue, when Inoue caught him with something solid, he reacted like, holy crap, what was that? You know what I mean? And it really changed my thought process about him, because shortly after that, he was KO'd in the second round. And to me, I kind of see Maloney going along the same lines. Donaire had more boxing skills, punching power, and could absorb punishment a little bit better than these other little guys. And Inoue is banking on being stronger and more powerful than most of his opponents that he faces. And he kind of reminds me, if you want to put anything to him, I guess you could say he's like Julian Jackson at that weight, throwing those heavy shots like that and everything. I don't think that Maloney is going to be able to take it, not for 12 rounds. He may hold up, but he's going to get stopped. And I really see that happening early. I said I think it'll go 3 rounds. It wouldn't surprise me if it went a few rounds longer, and that could be based on 2 things, according to my interpretation. It could either be Maloney being able to absorb as much as he can and then he checks out, or Inoue decides that he's just going to work him a little bit and then surprise him. Because when he hit Rodriguez, you could see Rodriguez, like I said, his whole disposition changed, as if to say, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? And then after that, he couldn't, he kept him hurt and he stopped him. He got him out of there. So that's my thoughts on it. And I expect a really good showcase for Mr. Monster. What do you got?
I'm gonna rock with Monster in this one. Since I don't know too much about the other guy, Maloney. I'm rocking with Monster, man. And the other reason I'm rocking with him is I just from his rejection of that belt, and also seeing that he's a guy with heart. He's a guy with heart. I just don't like the hype that he's receiving, but it's the media doing it based on his division. I think he is the man down there, and I think I want to see what he's going to do against this opponent. I don't want to count the opponent out because I don't know too much about him. But ultimately, I see myself Inoue being victorious in this fight. I'd like to see if the WBC try to present him with another belt, if that's the case of him winning again. But that's my views on that one.
Yeah. And I feel you. It's like we will see what happens. And But anyway, you know, I think he's not really gonna have a problem till he moves up a little bit. You know, he's gonna have to fight some bigger people and move up and see how he fares against, you know, others at a different weight class. That's, to me, until he does that, we're not really gonna know what's happening with him. I want to say salute to Drew Titan. He's out there hitting us up in the Cash App, and he says for grind time. Thank you, Drew. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you a whole lot, man. And also for your assistance with advertising the Stormybman channel and what we're doing over here, contributing to our growth, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so Reggie, I thought that I'll take this time out to introduce a new segment to the Friday Night Chop Session. And we had talked about doing this, and I made sure that I wouldn't forget this time. And it's so funny, man. You know, I'm always thinking of different things to do and to bring to the show. We have a new segment, and we're going to call it the Thunderous Top 10. And the Thunderous Top 10 is out here as a means of talking about the fighters who make a impact on the sport. You know, it is fighters who give us a reason to tune in and watch what's going on and whatnot. So I'll say once a month we'll bring this little segment in and talk about it. And the Thunderous Top 10 is not necessarily a pound for pound list, but it's guys who are impacting the sport tremendously with either their performances present in the ring or most recent, and also how they've handled themselves in fights. And this is just paying homage and respect to the guys in the sport in a manner of which I don't think we're honestly getting today, especially with these bullcrap pound for pound lists that the sporting people are presently, you know, devising, leaving certain names off and, you know, not letting guys come through with their what their accomplishments are and whatnot. So, you know, it's just something that I thought I would bring out here, Reggie. And as I put the list up there on the screen, you can see it. And let me know what your thoughts are about it. As you can see, going from number 10 up to 1, we got Shawn Porter at number 10. We got Demetrius Andrade at number 9. We got Jermell Charlo at number 8. At number 7, we got Gary Russell Jr. At number 6, we got Artur Beterbiev. At number 5, we got Josh Taylor. At number 4, we have Canelo Alvarez. At number 3, I've got Earl Spence Jr. At number 2, I've got Bud Crawford. And at number 1, I have Jermell Charlo. Now, the thing about this Thunderous Top 10, this list, I devised this as a way of just recognizing what guys are doing in the sport right now. Even though you see Demetrius Andrade at number 9, there are fighters who don't want to get in the ring with this guy, you know. And I put Shawn Porter at number 10 simply based on the fact that as active fighters go today, he is one champion, former champions who have basically fought a who's who in his division, in his weight class. And there's a lot of respect on Shawn Porter's name for that, because there are not a number of fighters, even on this list, that can say that, although there are a couple. So I want to know what you think about this list, Reggie, and we can go from 1 through 10, or we can go from 10 to 1 if you like to have a conversation about it.
Yeah. From the list, it's a very good list. But me, I'll take Andrade. Oh, but you got Beterbiev on there. But Andrade, I wouldn't have him on there. Gary Russell, I'm sorry, guys, I wouldn't have on there. I'll definitely have to add Tank Davis probably in place of those two, as well as I'll probably have to throw Teofimo's name in that hunt right now as well. With Gary, the lack of activity, being this far along, still not getting the big fights. Also, when it comes to Boo Boo Andrade, it's the same thing, just not seeing the excitement coming up out of him, not getting the big fights. I think Tank Davis would be the perfect replacement for both of those, as well as who was my other Thunderous fighter? It looks like it's the champion, so it'll have to be definitely Teofimo Lopez as the other replacement for those two right there. Everybody else on the thing looks perfect from my opinion, but and Sean would have to go higher, man. I like Sean Porter, man. I like Sean Porter. Sean Porter is a dog. He brings a lot. I know people speak about him not being celebrated TV star and this and that, but when he gets in that ring, he brings it. And dang, who else we got? Yeah, other than that, I like everybody who's on your list. I would have had them home mines as well. But that's my thoughts on that. I think it's a pretty good Thunderous top 10 list.
Yeah, and understand this. This is not pound for pound. Even though I put Sugar Ray Robinson's picture up there, this is not pound for pound. These are fighters that impact in the sport. If you don't think that Demetrius Andrade is not impacting the middleweight division, he is. He's holding up a lot of things. The fact that he's there and nobody wants to really fight the guy, and I'm not saying they're not wanting to fight him like they're running scared or anything, but I don't think there's enough money on the table for fighters to take a risk and things like that. But as time passes by, you know, he gets older, his skills are eroding and things like that, because he is the type of guy that he can make you look ugly. You know who was he back in the day? Mike Mccallum. There were a number of guys that could have fought Mike Mccallum but didn't fight him because his name wasn't as great at the time and his skill set was the type that he could make you look bad. And there were not enough fighters that really wanted to face him at that time. I can actually explain why each and every fighter is on this list. And it's not to try to win someone's favor. It's, like I said, this is Stormyman's Thunderous Top 10. Now, understand, Tank got a fight coming up tomorrow night where he has an opportunity to prove his wares in a real step-up fight against a guy that is a world champion, multiple-time world champion, is young enough. He's not long in the tooth. He's still in his prime, and they're going to face off. And who knows, on the next list, Tank may be able to find himself on here. Remember, it's the Thunderous Top 10. But he hadn't fought in a while, and we're getting ready to see him tomorrow night. So when next time I do this list, he could very well be on there. I purposely didn't put Teofimo on here because I think we need to see more of the body of work against with Teofimo. I think there's more that we need to see out of him. Beating Comey, who I thought looked like crap against him, and I was like, okay, he beat the guy, but I didn't think much of Comey even before he fought him. And that's not a hang-up, but he beat Lomachenko. Let's see what else he can do. And for Gary Russell, he's kind of in the Demetrius Andrade situation. We got guys who have run from the division and cleared away from him. I could have easily put someone like Guillermo Rigondeaux on the list for the same reasons, or Luis Ortiz. But Gary Russell is a world champion and has been one for quite a long time now. I think he's the longest reigning champ currently. And he's had a lot of men run away from his division from him. Artur Beterbiev is a guy who is everything that people who are boxing fans like to see. Bitterbev goes out there, he knocks people out. In his unification match with Gavaskar, he beat that man down to the point where he wanted to quit. Teddy Atlas wouldn't let him quit. Then finally they had to stop the fight. You know, and he was supposed to fight this October as well, but he suffered a injury, and so it delayed him and his return to the ring to early next year. So, you know, that's a guy. Now, Josh Taylor, he won the Super Series. He beat Regis Prograis. You know, a lot of people felt like Prograis beat him, but it's like he still came out with that Muhammad Ali trophy. He's looking like the man to beat at 140. Let's see what's happening with that. But, you know, that's he makes the list. Canelo Alvarez makes the list simply for the fact that he's been a guy who's been very consistent, and no matter how vulnerable we may think he is, he's still beating people, and he's still doing it skillfully. And until somebody goes in there like Floyd Mayweather did and take it from him, you have to give him the respect of what he's accomplished in the ring, even if you don't like how he's going about it. Now, would I like to see him in there with these other two middleweights that are young and primed and, you know, right there for him and everything? Of course I would. You know, there's no doubt about it. But, hey, you know, it don't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. And he may drop down on the list simply for not facing those guys. Earl Spence Jr., we're about to see Earl come back against Danny Garcia. He could easily, based on his performance in that fight, catapult to the top or just under Jermell Charlo. And Bud Crawford could just as easily drop if he has a poor performance against Kell Brook. But I have Jermell Charlo at the top of the list simply because the man has won me over. He has convinced me that not only is he a pristine fighter at the top of his game in his prime right now, but he has shown me a multifaceted means of how to get rid of guys. He could get rid of guys early. He could get rid of them in the middle rounds. He could get rid of them late. He carries his power into the late rounds. He can knock you out with the left. He can knock you out with the right. He can knock you out with a hook. He can knock you out with an uppercut. He is well-versed, well-tooled. He has a decent chin, a very good chin, as a matter of fact. He can box. He can move. He can fight off the back foot, as people like to say. He can be aggressive and hunt guys down. He listens to his corner. He is a fighter that you want to see when he has an opportunity to perform, because you don't know how his fights are going to end. You just know that it's more than likely he may come out on top. And that's the thing about him. He reminds me, and I had said this in someone else's show on a panel talking about him, he reminds me of Marvin Hagler. Not that he fights like Marvin Hagler, for anyone out there says, oh, Stormy said he's like Marvin Hagler. No, the way that he approaches fighting, the way that he approaches his career as far as in the ring. He believes now, especially after having dropped that loss to Tony Harrison, that the best way to win his fights are making his fist the judge and juror. And that's what we try to convey to a lot of these guys. When you go out there and you put it on the line, remember, Tony Harrison, he got knocked out in their rematch. And he could have possibly won a boxing match, but he lost focus. He played around, and all he gave Jermell was that opening to step in and take it all back from him. That's why you never quit. That's why you hang in there to the final bell, because you just don't know. And he never stopped trying to go get that guy. He never stopped trying. And that right there, it tells me so much about this man. He is head and shoulders above everybody else in his division, even though that's one of the hottest divisions in boxing today. None of those men are ready for Jermell. Jermell is a killer. He's like Marvin Hagler, seek and destroy, war type individual. And I like to see him fight. I can't wait to see him fight again. And I hope it's one of the top guys, whoever it be. If it's Hurd or J-Rock, I don't care, Lubin, those guys are all going to get theirs when they get in the ring with him. So, but that's what the Stormybman Thunderous Top 10 is about. Again, like I said, we'll do this list, every 3 weeks or so we can update it. And like I said, you'll see guys on there today that might not even be on the next time it comes around. But this is a list of the fighters for what they're accomplishing in the sport or the impact they're having on the sport with their positions today. So, any other things you want to say about it, Reggie? You there, Reggie, or you on mute if you're there?
Oh yeah, my thing end up tripping out. No, what was you saying, OG?
No, I was saying anything else you would like to say or add about the Thunderous Top 10 and how we'll be presenting this going forward, as a segment for the show.
No, I like it. I want to keep going forward with it. I really like that idea. And as we go on, I want to start adding more names to it because like you say, even with that thought, anyone can move up. Anyone can be dropped off the list because things change as the sport continues to progress through. And especially the fighters who are active coming up on fights that are coming up.
Yeah, like I said, and one great example of that is Tank Davis. He's not on there, right? But if he goes out there and he's able to put on a scintillating performance tomorrow against Santa Cruz, you have to give him his credit there. That's the type of fight. Like, Santa Cruz ain't no punk. He can fight. And he's a multiple-time champion. So it's like you're going to have to respect a victory like that. If Santa Cruz, for whatever reason, come what may, happens to win, he has to be respected for turning back the challenge of a young guy who was thought to be on the come up. There's a lot of heat and everything behind his name and everything. But Tank just hasn't had the opposition in the ring to totally give it over to him yet. And that's the difference. So, yeah, the Thunderous Top 10. You guys look for this, and it's a great talking point. You don't have to like it. You can say, oh, Stormy don't know what he's talking about and this and that or whatever, and get mad and everything. Just hit the like button and come back for the next time we do it, and then maybe one of your guys will move up on the list. That's all. That's all it is. But it's just, for us to have talking points for the show and keep abreast of the guys who are accomplishing things in the sport. And remember, just because guys get on social media and they talk all of that stuff and everything, if they're not doing it in the ring, they definitely won't be on the list. So that's just something to keep in mind. The Thunderous Top 10. And we'll get a chance to see these guys, going forward. So, yes, indeed, as Reggie says. So, yeah, Reggie, I think like the next thing we can talk about is going right into the big fight for tomorrow evening, and that's the pay-per-view fight between Tank and Leo Santa Cruz. Another one that we've been getting these fire fights almost every weekend, if not every other weekend, but in succession, and I'm loving it, man. What are your thoughts going in? They had the weigh-in today. Tank was shivering like a cat that just got pulled out of a bath water, so it's like he made the weight, but he was nervous, and you could kind of see it. What are your thoughts going into tomorrow night?
My thoughts, man, is I'm intrigued as hell because I'm like, in my mind, I'm looking at it like Tank's about to run through Leo. But looking at it, I'm like, I know Leo is not coming in this fight to lay down, to not be ran through, to not be knocked out by Tank. And I'm thinking, man, that this may turn out to be an exciting fight. And this could be a fight that takes Tank to where he never been in the fight. And this is where preparation is going to be everything. Did he spend too much time in his training camp going through fat camp rather than going over game plan and working on things? Those are the things that intrigue me, man, because Leo came in here, not so much of the physique thing, but he's in here in shape. And also when thinking about Leo, he's a high volume dude. And in this game of boxing, a guy who can take you that deep, make you have to produce such a high work rate, what does it do to you on the back end as this fights begin to stretch out? Possibly, can he take Tank all the way up, drop him off? That's a thing. And also with Tank, can Tank display a different side of things? Take Leo up, match him with pressure in high volume, and also display a high level of cardio, and being that he can go deep and late into fights. And that's what championship boxing is about. Not that we see that Tank is exciting. We see that. We see the power. We see all this other stuff. But there's more dynamics to the sport. And he's going in here against a guy who also goes in there and bang with folks and bangs at a high volume, throwing 100 punches around and maintains that throughout a fight. And also while doing that, it ain't got to be about him knocking you out, but those punches are counting. They're scoring that type of stuff. Can Tank match it, or is Tank going to do what we seen this kid tonight do in Rashidi Ellis, just look for pop type shots? How well does he cut off the ring? Because I see many aspects in Leo's plan. I see Leo being a guy that's moving a lot. How well does Tank cut him off? How well does Tank deal with his height? Maybe the guy using the jab, staying out the way of Tank, just scoring, picking off shots, trying to get Tank to wear himself down by chasing after him. So where is Tank mind going to be working at inside of this ring? So I'm looking at it like Tank's going to knock him out. But there's also that side of me be like, man, Leo ain't about to go in here and just get laid down. This is the higher upper echelon. These guys just don't fold like that. So I can't wait to see it. I'm going for Tank, but I think I'm pulling back off of that knocking Leo thing out. I think, if anything, maybe Tank can get these scorecards going for himself. He can pull enough in the bag on the scorecards.
Yeah. It has been my thought going into this that there are sometimes where fighters, you just don't know what they have on the inside of them and what drives them until they're presented with challenges or crisis or some type of obstacle, adversity that they have to overcome. And this is a fight where everyone's talking about Tank knocking this guy out in Santa Cruz. But I do say this. If Santa Cruz can take his punch, we got a fight on our hands. It's as simple as that. Some guys, they can take a shot, that maybe someone else didn't take. Sometimes they are, your adrenaline get going. It's just like you talked about tonight with Toriano getting that cut on his mouth, and he still wanted to fight. But he didn't realize when he looks in the mirror, I'm sure he's going to be like, oh, God, what happened? You know what I mean? But while he was fighting, they telling him, hey, it's pretty bad. We got to stop it. He was still ready to go. We've seen guys quit for less, But just say if the man can absorb the shots. Now, of course, you don't want to take too many of them. But let's just say if he's able to defend the shots and they, like he puts his gloves in the right position and they hitting off the glove and not catching clean or solid. Because I've seen Tank hit a guy in the face and just immediately bust his stuff, I know he can punch. But sometimes just being able to punch ain't enough. Can you fight? And if you can't fight, there's no need for the guy to try to outbox you, because he could outfight you if you can't fight. Now, I'm not saying Tank can't fight, but I'm saying this is how I handicap fights. It's like, if the questions about guys, we don't have enough info and data on the guys who are fighting today to be able to give the actual breakdowns, because there's so much missing from their resumes, from their dossiers, from their fight ring experiences. We don't know if a guy gets knocked down, can he get back up and fight back? We don't know if a guy got a cut and he has to come back from that, or if he had to come from behind to win a fight that he was losing. All of these damn questions that we could have from two men facing off in the ring, we don't have enough data on all of these young guys. So if it sounds to you like, Stormy is wavering and stuff, I'm not. But I know, like, when I was looking at Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler, I had more data to go on, because these men fought fights that were competitive. They fought fights where they had adversity. They came back. They overcame this XYZ. And you could, like, basically just go on their styles and their character from that point. We don't have enough of that on these guys. None of them. You heard me say about Lopez beating Lomachenko. Okay, great. But Lomachenko was overhyped. The guy magically erased his one loss off his record when they showed his record on the screen. Avoided guys. Guys who he should have been fighting, who could be defining in a match against him. He avoided him. He went up in weight and left them, and stuff like that. Guillermo Rigondeaux, Carl Frampton, and Santa Cruz, and those guys, they were right there with him. They wouldn't fight him, so he couldn't get a defining moment of finding out how great he really is, or if they were greater than he by defeating him. You don't know, because they didn't fight. They just ran away from it. So in all of these fights, AJ, he had a chance to fight Deontay Wilder 3 years ago. Almost 4 years ago. The fight never happened. And he might have beat Wilder. We don't know. We know who we like, and we know who we were riding with and all of that. But it's like, until they really get in the ring, you don't know. Just like when he got in the ring with Andy Ruiz Jr., nobody expected Andy Ruiz to beat him like that and have him bouncing off of the canvas and stuff all those times. Nobody thought about that. They just thought that big, muscular dude was going to knock out the little fat, pudgy dude. And when you have all of these questions about the fighters, it really makes it hard to pick, especially when they haven't accepted or taken on challenges. And in a fight where it's a first, meaning like this is the first real challenge for Tank, it's the first, real talented guy that Leo is fighting. He's fighting Tank, but he didn't want to fight Rigo. That's kind of funny there. It's like, do you kind of feel me what I'm saying? It's like Tank is a bigger dude than Rigo, but he moved up from where Rigo was to avoid Rigo. So is it that he really don't think much of Tank? Or is he finally just thinking, I got to fight somebody? I don't know. We'll find out tomorrow night. But these are the type of things that you have to question and ask of yourself, because it's like never really cut and dried. Buster Douglas was a 42-1 underdog against Mike Tyson. He goes over there in Tokyo and boxes the dickens off of Mike Tyson and beats him up and knocks him out. Tyson's people were not so worried about Douglas that they didn't even bring an answell or anything to the ring, stuff for cuts or anything, because they thought that Tyson was going to do 2-3 rounds tops and come on back to America after he slept with a host of Japanese girls. Huh? Buster threw a wrench in that plan so big it was like Tyson never recovered from that mess. So we don't know, but we want to see it. And when we see it, we have more data on both guys. And then that's when it becomes interesting going forward, because one of them will lose and one will have been asked the question, what do I do now? If it's a great fight, you get questions asked of both guys in one fight. That's when it's a great fight. When someone is asked something, they answer, and then the other person has to make an adjustment to that. It doesn't do anybody any good if Tank just goes out there, hits this guy, and he goes down, and that's it. But, you know, that's how I see it. And I expect it to be a good fight for however long it lasts, if it goes a few rounds or if it goes to the distance. But I still think that there's some things going on with Tank Davis that will prevent him from reaching the so-called potential, because the young man just can't get this thing with weight under control. And I know what that's all about. He's too inactive. He's not active enough. He's treating himself like he's the heavyweight champion of the world, fighting once a year or once every 18 months or something like that. No, dude, you got to fight 3-4 times a year. You fight 3-4 times a year, you put fights together, your timing is there, your condition is there, and you're ready to roll, and you can really max yourself as far as your potential. But when you're sitting around, you're getting fat, you're drinking, you're hanging, and you're doing all of that, no. You're spending more time, more of your prime not doing anything than what your actual career is as far as being associated with your prime. I'm here in Chicago, and we had a quarterback here on the Chicago Bears, Jay Cutler. The Denver Broncos kicked that guy out, and they traded him away for our backup QB, Kyle Orton. Now, with what Jay Cutler did, he ran some numbers, but he was never a winner. So we could have kept Kyle Orton. He could have not, he maybe put up the numbers that Jay Cutler put up, but he was a better guy as far as a mental preparation for games and whatnot. But all they said about Cutler for 10, 12 years, he was here. Oh, he has potential. He has potential. Dude, he had a freaking career based on what they thought about potential. When does the potential turn into accomplishments? It never did for Jay Cutler. Huh? So Tank is 25 years old. Do you realize that Sugar Ray Leonard was fighting Tommy Hearns for the first time when he was 25? Hearns was 22. So you got, what's the young man's name at the super featherweight?
Wait, who you talking about? Anyway, you talking about?
No. At the super feather. What's the young boy with Andre Ward in them?
Oh, Shakur.
Shakur is what, 22?
I think somewhere around that age.
Okay. And then you got Devin Haney, who's 20, right? Something like that?
Yeah, I think he's 20. I think he's 21.
Yeah, 21. So think about it. Tank is 25. Those two guys are 22, 23, or 21. This is around the time that Hearns and Leonard was fighting each other. That age. prime years as far as when you're really good. If you have a loss, you could bounce back quicker because you're younger, you're fresher, and everything like that. So do you see what I'm trying to say here? They're not even facing each other. How long are you going to put it off? Do you want Tank to be 30 when he finally faces Shakur Stevenson? That's, that's empty. That's like when, Mayweather and Pacquiao, people wanted to see it sooner, right? And that doesn't mean that Pacquiao would have had a greater chance because Floyd would have been younger as well. But it would have been nice to see those guys in their optimum years instead of their latter years. Huh? They're faster. More punches might have been thrown. Shit, more action could have been had. Maybe somebody would have hit the canvas or something. Whatever. But it's like, my goodness, you got a hot rod, but you're driving in the city. You need to put that thing on the road. Bumper to bumper ain't getting it. You in rush hour traffic in a Ferrari. What is that? You want to see these men showcased at their best, doing their best when they are most at their optimum. What's wrong with that? Nothing. That's the way it's supposed to be. Not the way that they're trying to impress upon you. Because all that's saying is, I don't want to take the risk. It ain't that nobody's scared of each other. It's just they don't want to take the risk. If you don't want to take the risk, then you don't dare to be great. So why should I call you great? Why should I have you on my list? That's my choice. You choose not to fight. I choose not to talk about you. Acknowledge you. Big you up. Why? This huge, vast history of fighters that I could big up that have accomplished far more than you could ever do in your career. Sugar Ray Robinson fought several fights in 19 days or something. It's like this man was fighting every other week. But people like Floyd Mayweather is trying to say he greater than that man. He was great for what he did in his era. But there are some guys who you just can't hold a candle to when they dared to be great. You dared to rake in the money, and you did. That's great. That's commendable. But you can't snatch down my heroes and idols like Ali and be like, oh, you're more than they were. When these men did so much more for the sport in so many different ways and are still impactful. So, but that's what I have to say based on what's going to happen tomorrow night. It's a wait and see type thing for me. Tank is the favorite. He should be. Leo is in there. He's decided to fight somebody. Some people are saying like, oh, it's a cash out fight for him or whatever. We'll find out, won't we? Because as Kurt Sugar says, the ring is where you learn the truth about the fighters. It's the greatest truth serum ever. That ring, that square jungle. You're going to find out who is who. And hopefully they both bring their big boy pants and we get to see something that's entertaining and worth our while. But we know boxing being the theater of the unexpected, we could see some travesty as well. So be prepared. Keep your Kleenex handy. That's what I got to say about that, Reg.
Yeah, I got nothing else with it.
So, but yeah, this is going to be a great evening. These fights are going to run almost concurrent. They're like, I think we'll start off with the Usyk card, and that's on DAZN. Inoue is on ESPN, and then Tank is on Showtime pay-per-view. So, how are you going to go about calling fights tomorrow, Reg? Let everybody know so they can know how to catch up with you.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna start off with that UK bout. I'll be on my on both of my channels, the main and backup channel. I think around 2:00 Pacific Standard Time, because I'm just doing the main card off of that one, and I think 3 of the cards off of the Inoue fight I'm doing. Where's the Inoue fight? I think I'm doing 2 of the fights. So the co-fight, the co-main event, and the main event off the Inoue fight, and then I'll be doing the pay-per-view fight for Tank Davis.
Okay. That's good stuff. Good stuff. So you guys can tune in tomorrow to Reggie, Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, as he will give calls on the fights. And then we will be back here late after the Davis Santa Cruz card ends for a post-fight show with Stormybman and Reggie Owens, where we'll keep everything connected that way. So just know that we'll all be reunited again, I guess 24 hours from now. So yeah, that's one way to look at it. So yeah. But any other talking points that you'd like to cover, Reggie, before we close it out, or are you pretty much done?
No, that was pretty much it. I think we touched on everything. I just want to see what's the results of these fights tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mainly that Tank one. I just want to see what how each fighter displays their talents in that fight, because now it got closer. I'm a little bit more in the air on it now.
Yeah. Well, it's another great show, man. I mean, we were really rocking this evening, man. I appreciate everybody that's out there in the chat, man, that came in, the new subscribers who came to the channel this evening, who followed from Blue Blood Sports from earlier this afternoon, as well as Reggie Owens' call of the fights this evening. I appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel. We always try to bring you positive and clean content here on the Stormybman channel. And if you haven't had a chance, please go and check out, it's on the main page, the 3 Wise Men of Boxing show that we did last night, where we actually did the 46th anniversary, which is tonight, of the Rumble in the Jungle. It took place October 30th, 1974, Foreman against Ali. That's when Ali won his heavyweight title back, 10 years from when he won it the first time against Sonny Liston. He became 2-time heavyweight champion against another big, bad, ugly monster that he called him, George Foreman. So that's a great show. Kurt Sugar and myself, we did that show last night, and we really knocked it out the park there. And if you tune in, there's a treat where we actually call the fight and reminisce on it and build the story about everything around it. And it was quite entertaining. So if you guys didn't get a chance to check that out, please do. You'll be doing yourself a disservice if you do not check out that show. So that's about it for this evening. We appreciate you guys coming out. From my co-host here, Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, this is Stormybman. We're going to get on up out of here. Let you guys enjoy the rest of your evening and weekend. We look forward to those fights for tomorrow night. And we'll say peace to you guys. Please check out that show, though. 3 Wise Men of Boxing, Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, the Rumble in the Jungle. So we'll catch you guys tomorrow night, same time, on the post-fight show. Peace to everybody. Have a good night.